enemy coordinates sent to our artillery.
What is up there everyone, it's the Gardener Gamertech here, and today I wanted to do a follow-up to my last Battlefield 1 video, where I was addressing my concerns for the franchise and whether they're leaving enough time between the games to actually make the quality games we really want to play. And I wanted to follow it up because I felt that at the end of the video, that the In the Name of the Tsar DLC could be the tipping point to where the game finally has enough content to make me really come back and want to play it. And the DLC has delivered, in my opinion. The weapon assignments and the service assignments do leave a lot for me to do. I'm still trying to go through them all. Admittedly, some of these assignments are mind-numbingly difficult. Shooting down the aeroplane seems to be near enough impossible. Admittedly, I've only tried it on Galicia, which is probably my least favourite map of all time, because it's just die to a sniper, die to a mortar, die to another sniper, die to 4 more snipers, eventually die to an artillery chuck, and then artillery bombardment, and then die to another sniper. I just cannot stand the map. It's just too open, and there is almost no cover. If you aren't playing scout kit, you are going to get killed constantly, and it just really, really annoys me as a map. I've had a couple of fun games on it, but the bad games have massively outweighed the good games. But I do enjoy the content that they've added into this DLC. It does give a lot more for players to do. However, it has really started to highlight some of the gameplay issues in the game that are really starting to get at me. I'm not going to address weapon balance because there is going to be a big weapon patch coming up, and for me that can't come soon enough. Admittedly, I've been completely leaving the Lewis gun assignment because apparently the Lewis gun's going to be great after this next patch, so I have just been leaving some weapons alone in the hope that the patch is really going to make those weapons a lot more competitive. But there are some gameplay issues which apparently seem to be minor because it doesn't seem like anyone's really addressing them, or that anything is being said that these things are going to be fixed, but they are things that really do spoil and potentially ruin the game for me as a player. One of those is actually to do with the mantling system in the game. I don't know what it is, but if you get a small slope or something that's about 2 or 3 feet high, your soldier seems to be incapable of climbing or walking over it, and I do not understand why this is. It became a problem in Star Wars Battlefront, and it's even more of a problem in Battlefield 1. I think the fact that you've also got the ground deformation really doesn't help this because it makes slopes which your soldier really struggles to climb up, and it just becomes really frustrating because you're in a small trench. The trench height is maybe 2 or 3 feet tall, so we all know that anyone can just jump out of that if they really want to, but the way the mantling system works, it will assume that you need to mantle over it, but then once your soldier tries to mantle, you then slide back into the trench, and it does this. You seem to go up and down and up and down. You eventually have to back up and then try from a further distance, and then your soldier will get out. But in the heat of the moment, this usually causes you to die because you are trying to get out this trench and someone's just got a clear line of sight onto you, so you have no chance of running away. You also get this with small rocks and logs. If they're about 2 foot tall, your soldier just won't walk over them. They just sort of bump into them really awkwardly, and it just becomes really annoying, and it ruins the fluidity of the movement of your character. And then just generally some slopes, they just cause your soldiers to sort of slide back down them, and I don't understand why this is. They're slopes that really don't look that steep. Yeah, I'm not saying that people should be able to just walk up a 90-degree cliff face, but these are slopes that are maybe 2 in 1 at the most. Anyone can just walk up those, but for some reason they cause your soldier to slide back down, and you go up there, you think, yeah, I can get this really good flank on the enemy team. Oh no, I can't, because my soldier seems to have butter on their shoes and I'm just sliding back down all of these random slopes. It's a gameplay feature that's really getting to annoy me, because when I'm trying to do something awesome like get a really good flank, or I'm just trying to escape an enemy, these are the things that get me killed, and they just become really frustrating as you're playing the game. Another thing that has really bugged me for months now is artillery in rush and front lines. It's just really such an unfair mechanic in some ways. It's the fact that the enemy does not have to see you to call in an artillery barrage on you and get the kill. It's just free kills for holding down one button. I've got this example here. I'm on Lookout Pass and I've moved up towards the next base on rush. I decide I'm going to check these houses which are nowhere near the objectives. I'm completely out of line of sight of the enemy, and there are no spot flares anywhere near me. There is no way the enemies can spot me from this range. I'm inside a house, I'm out of line of sight, and there's no spot flares. And yet I am the only person this artillery barrage gets called in on. How did they know I was there? No, this player never knew I was there. They could not see me, they could not hear me, they had no idea that I would even be there. They just held down one button and they get a free kill on me. How is that fair on the player that receives the artillery barrage death? It is not fair. If I was to change this, I would make it so that either certain players only can call it in. Perhaps you have to achieve something in game to be able to call in this artillery barrage. I kind of understand thematically why they wanted to include it. It would have been a tactic in World War I, but the implementation is just unfair on the people it's called in on because they have very little chance to react to it. Because yes, they get the audio cue where the announcer says artillery barrage activated, but you don't actually know where it's going to land. You don't see any shells coming through the air, so you can kind of gauge where they're going to land. They just drop on top of you and you are dead. And there was nothing you could do about it. If I was to change this, I would make it so that actually the player who calls it in just gets a blank map. This isn't like a mini map where it shows up enemies that spotted, it's just a blank map with grid references. They can choose exactly where on that map they want the artillery barrage to be called in on. That way the player has either communicated with their team to find out where the enemies are, or they put it in a predetermined place where they think the enemies will be. That at least requires a little bit more skill than the game just deciding randomly where it's going to put it, because I don't know exactly how the artillery barrage works at the moment. It almost seems to just randomly put it in on people, and usually that person seems to be me, because I've actually had one game where I've had artillery called in on me when I've been the only player in my area 6 times in one game. In fact, I think it was 4 times on the same base. I was out of line of sight, I was nowhere near my teammates, and yet the artillery got called in on me, and it made absolutely no sense, and it just became incredibly frustrating as a player. Another thing which is a little bit annoying, but at the same time I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, is the sentry and flame trooper. Now specifically the sentry's machine gun. This thing has been useless since the launch of the game. I don't know what happened to it. It was okay in the beta, but now it's utterly worthless. I get out damaged by medic rifles when I'm using this sentry. I can't tell whether it's just the spread or whether it also has low damage, because the spread just makes it so that you can't hit anything at close or long range. You just cannot hit anything with this gun. And it's completely worthless. You're supposed to be able to turn the tides of a battle with this thing, and in fact all you do is you just become a bigger target and you take an extra death. And the flame trooper was good, but in the last patch or something it seems like the flame trooper is now almost useless. They seem to kill so much slower, and it just means that people can really luckily get bayonet charges or get a melee takedown on you, because they can just run round you because they don't die to the Wex anymore. I don't know exactly what's going on here. I would like a little bit more transparency. If it's a case that the developers have now decided actually this isn't what we want to do with the game, we don't want these kits to be as powerful, then that's fair enough. But at the same time, if you're going to have them in the game, you need to find some sort of happy medium, because in some game modes like operations, these kits are supposed to be the behemoth if your team is losing. These are supposed to help you push up onto those objectives, but if they're completely and utterly useless, why would anyone bother taking them? I can't tell you the amount of times that there's a sentry kit located and everyone stays clear of it because they know it's going to be terrible and it's useless, and all it does is paints a bigger target on your head. So I really would like to see some transparency as to why these kits aren't as useful as they used to be, and what the developers actually want them to be used for, because currently they just seem to be almost useless at times. And then also finally, speaking of behemoths, the armoured train on Galicia is utterly worthless half the time. There are these particular weapons on it which are almost like the landship cannons, but they are just useless. They have the slowest fire rate known to man, and they don't really do much damage to back it up. And also because the projectile moves so slowly, it really is quite difficult to lead the targets. So essentially you've got this weapon which doesn't seem to do much damage, it reloads incredibly slowly, and it also travels incredibly slowly, which means you get assault players, they can just run circles around this thing because there is no way you can kill them, because they move so much faster and you can't do enough damage to kill them. This weapon needs an upgrade in at least one of these aspects, because currently the weapon is completely useless, and if you've got an armoured train where maybe only 1 or 2 of the weapons are actually useful on it, then it doesn't turn the tides of a game. It's just a big target there for people to shoot at, and it's incredibly irritating because if you're trying to take, for instance, the last base on Galicia, this weapon's just useless. It's not helping your team. All it does is gives you a slightly more protected person on the flag. But other than that, it doesn't really provide much brute force, which is what the armoured train is supposed to do. And for me, it's made that last base almost impossible to capture a lot of the time. And it just leads to a frustrating gaming experience. Now, the reason I'm making these videos complaining about Battlefield 1 is not because I'm wanting to hate on the game. I want to really enjoy and love this game. The problem is, I just get these odd experiences which completely ruin it and make the game so annoying to play. There are some moments, like the gameplay you've been seeing in the background, where I managed to go flawless on Albion defence. I absolutely loved this round, and Albion actually seems to be one of my favourite maps in this expansion because it just plays so well. There is a chance for both teams to win and clinch the game, and when you have really evenly matched teams, the matches are so fun because they are so challenging. But just some of the matches in this game just ruin it for me. I do have great experiences in this game, but the annoying ones just overwhelmingly override my memory of those good experiences, and it disappoints me that that is the fact. I'm going to be sticking with this game because I do enjoy playing it, but I just would like to see some of these things addressed because they're just those things which in the heat of the moment lead to a very frustrating death, and if they could get changed, it won't feel like you've been cheated by the game. You'll be able to perhaps give a little more credit to the enemy for having outplayed you in that scenario. But I do hope you've enjoyed the video. This has been the Gardener Gamertag, and I'll see you on another video.